Proposition H, small business streamlining. You will also hear about how our inspectors are helping to enforce COVID safety guidelines at construction sites. I want to thank our permitting agency partners who are joining us here today, Liz Waddy and Bridget Hicks from SF Planning, and Richard Brown from the Fire Department. Can I have slide 3, John? The goal for this forum. My goal for this coming year are, number 1, to improve our customer experience. Number 2, streamline our services and increase efficiency. And 3, ensure transparency and accountability in everything we do. Your ideas and feedback will help us achieve these goals. I believe in proactive, open, and collaborative approach to engaging with stakeholders, customers, and partners to stay current with the construction industry in San Francisco and to implement best practices. That is why I believe this forum has such a very important role in providing us an opportunity to hear from you, our customers and stakeholders. This past year was really tough. COVID has put a huge impact on our operations, especially our permitting processing. Over the past several months, we've worked hard to troubleshoot problems and implement new processes. We appreciate your patience and your input and your willingness to adapt with us as we adjusted to our new reality. Through input from our customers, we launched multiple initiatives, which included offering a permit day in early October, streamlining our over-the-counter in-person services, refining the EPR workflow, and partnering with other departments to help us move projects forward. We learned a lot from hearing from you, so please continue to provide us with your feedback. Sam Sharouri, our Chief Administrative Officer of our Permit Services Division, joined DBI several weeks ago and has already had a big impact on improving our permit processing. He will provide a brief update on our permit services. You will also have an opportunity to provide us with your feedback during the discussion portion. But first, John Murray will lay out the guidelines for the meeting, including how to participate. John?
Good morning, everybody. So the department staff will speak on the listed agenda items. Each item will be followed by an opportunity for attendees to ask questions or to make comments and suggestions. For public comment call-in, please, you can call 415-655-0001. The access code is 146-438-2704. To raise your hand for public comment on a specific agenda, you can, if you're on the phone, you can press *3, or you can press the little hand raise emblem in the bottom corner of the chat if you are doing this via WebEx. Please be respectful of everyone's time and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And now Sam will begin his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Sharouri. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Permit Services. I want to thank you for joining our call. As Director Orion indicated, we always appreciate your feedback and input. Extremely valuable to us. At the end of the day, you are the purpose for our existence, which is serving you in the best manner possible. In my new role as Chief Administrative Officer, I oversee 2 sections. One is the plan check, where we have the engineers and plan checkers review the plans for compliance with the building codes. And the other section is for permit issuance, where we intake permits, intake plan checks, and process permits for issuance. If you can advance the next slide, John, that would be great. So our current permitting services and operations is that we provide over-the-counter permits for projects that do not require plans, and we do that between the hours of 7:30 and 9:30. If you do have projects that do require plan check, you can drop off by an appointment between 9:30 to 3:30. We also have some online permits, including trade permits for plumbing, mechanical, electrical aspects, and as well as re-roofing permits. And we are working diligently on adding additional permits that can be processed online. We always process emergency permit in an expeditious manner. If there is an urgent situation, we do give it priority and process it accordingly. We're also doing electronic plan review currently in a limited basis, but we're expanding it as well. We're doing it for Prop H projects for affordable housing and ADUs. Next slide, John. Thank you. So in terms of the challenges that we have and what we are doing is the first thing is basically implementing technology and automating our operations to the extent possible. We've been working on that and we'll continue working on that and provide more improved services, online services for you. We have expanded the number of no review permits available online, as I mentioned, for the roofing permits and the trade permits, and we have kitchen and bath type remodel permits coming online soon too. We hired additional staff. We kind of did some reorganization that helps us streamline our efforts and coordinate our efforts in a much more effective manner, and we're already seeing the results of that. We're offering part overtime to permit processing staff. We're offering overtime to plan review staff. We understand timing is critical to you. I know it is a painful point. We do feel your pain, and our days, day in and day out, is basically expediting and improving the services that we provide to you. We have also partnered with other departmental agencies within City Hall and County Hall so that they can process their own permits and take some of the pressure off of us in terms of processing the permits. Those include the fire department permits and planning ADU type permits. Next slide, John. Thank you. So we offer permits. We offer we offer appointments, 36 appointments per day where you can drop off your permits requiring plan check. We can also have a wait list. Some of our appointments are way out, and we understand the unreasonableness of having to wait a long time for an appointment. So we do look at the wait list. We accommodate the wait list, and typically within just a matter of a few days, we can get you in off of the wait list to process your permit based on vacancies and availabilities. Next slide, John. In terms of our intake process, we have appointed a new manager of permit for permit processing. And as I mentioned earlier, we have merged a number of sections together that noticeably and already has given very positive results. And in terms of the wait time for taking in permits and processing and issuance of the building permits. Next slide, John. By the way, and in terms of our projections to eliminate the backlog for permit issuance and permit processing and permit intake, we're looking, our target is 0 wait days. So anything that comes in, we would be able to do the same day or the very next day if it comes in late in the day. And we're targeting end of February within basically 4 weeks, a month to achieve that. In terms of plan check, we're also doing some improvements and changes for smaller projects, like an addition, for example. If someone is doing an addition, we reorganized our plan check process so that the plan check, the small project, would not have to go to multiple plan checkers, sometimes as much as 3, possibly 4 plan checkers reviewing one small room addition. So for small room additions, we have trained staff, and staff now addresses and does the corrections and the plan check. One single plan checker addresses all of your corrections. This eliminates the need for plan checks to go into multiple queues when it could be for those small projects and small things to be reviewed. Those include things like simple mechanical, electrical, plumbing type corrections that you would see in a single family dwelling, and energy regulations, Title 24, that are fairly simple for additions and remodels. And those would be done by one plan checker. So you basically, if you have a question about any of those, you don't have to go across multiple plan checkers. One plan checker will be able to answer and address your questions. Next slide, John. So just in the next few weeks and months, we will be looking at, just a recap, to continue working on new technology and improvements. We are looking, we're looking at reducing the plan check delays that we're experiencing and that you are experiencing. That is very important to us. We're looking at reducing the delays in terms of the intake of permits and plan checks. And as I mentioned, we're already seeing results on that, and we will continue to improve this process. Next slide, John. So let me see. Any questions or suggestions? I think at the end of this presentation, overall presentation, we are looking for your feedback and your input, and we would always be grateful for any direction that you give us. Next slide, John. Okay, and yeah, that's all right. If you could.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take some questions.
Oh, we are right now. Sure, absolutely. I would be happy to take any questions.
Caller 510295. I'm unmuting you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, so I think these sound like great changes.
Sorry, you need to speak up a little bit.
I've experienced problems with permits that are currently being reviewed. In particular, the Central Processing Bureau, I believe, CPB, permits are being held there for an awful long time before they're released, because they've been completely reviewed. And I'm wondering what's being done to work through the backlog that's happening.
Okay. Thank you for this question. As mentioned earlier, and maybe I'll shed some lights on that. And earlier, just a month ago, we had no tracking process of all those requests. So anything that was coming in, we were having it in multiple lists. We basically used Outlook as a database application. We had multiple Excel spreadsheets under some employees. So the very first thing that we did is that we have consolidated all of our requests to know exactly what we have and exactly when it came in. Once we had that, we started eliminating the duplicates. We started eliminating the things that had already been done and cleaned up our list. And once we have done that, we have also gone to a consolidated division in terms of the permit processing. And we have already significantly reduced the number of waiting plan checks and permits that are coming for issuance. Just a month ago, we had things waiting as early as May and June. All of those are gone. And we are working, except for a couple of projects that have a specific, like 4 projects specifically, that have a special situation. All the permits that we have, that we are processing, are mostly from January this month, and a smaller number from December. So we are kind of getting caught up, and we have made great progress, and we're certainly getting there, and have made great strides in terms of eliminating this weight. Any other questions or follow-up questions?
Sorry, I'm unmuting somebody here. What's going on? Excuse me, technical difficulties here. Okay, let's try this one. Irving Gonzalez, you are unmuted.
Great. Good afternoon, and thank you all for your brief updates on everything and the progress you appear to be making. We're still, as a brief point of introduction, I'm the former board president of the local chapter of the San Francisco office of the American Institute of Architects. And so, like many of our other colleagues and small firm members, we're obviously suffering as much as you guys, if not more so. But one of the things that we wanted to ask, or I'm asking, is would you consider, and what are your thoughts about third-party plan checks going forward to maintain an even and more fluid process for getting things addressed, and then on the electronic plan review process, is that going to resume for other than affordable housing for to become more of the main approach for plan check to be done in parallel as opposed to series?
Sure, that's some very great points, Mr. Gonzalez, and I appreciate you bringing them up. Certainly, third-party plan checks and outside firms is one of the very first things that I discussed with Director O'Riordan, and we're very interested in doing so. Unfortunately, we are, and frankly speaking, to be transparent, fully transparent, it is kind of difficult to do because of our internal bureaucracy and internal process in terms of hiring outside consultants, mainly for labor issues and the labor contracts and unions. I would definitely appreciate any support you can give in terms of the making this happen. We're extremely interested in doing it, making it happen. As you know, when we get plan checks, when we get when we receive plan checks, they do not come in on regular basis. I mean, sometimes you get hundreds of millions of projects in one day, and maybe in a few days or a few weeks, you get smaller number of permits. So this kind of fluctuation that takes place of the incoming makes it basically exasperates this volatility of the inflow, exasperates the wait time. And what we're looking for is very interested in having consultants and outside plan checks basically be able to absorb those shocks that come in, so that we are able to provide the service in a timely manner. So that's something that we are looking at and hoping that it would happen. In terms of the electronic plan review, we are exploring additional processes and options. Our current process is a bit time-consuming in terms of taking the plans and inputting them, processing them. I sat down with one of the permit techs. It took like 45 minutes to log in one plan. Whereas what I see and the way it should happen, it should just happen instantaneously with you by submitting it online. That will basically, I talked about with staff a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, in terms of their interest in doing plan check, in terms of the difficulties that they're facing, and we are working through those difficulties to make more electronic plan check a lot more possible and more expanded for many more projects.
Okay, Mr. Penn, David Penn, I'm trying to unmute you, but I'm unable to. If you wouldn't mind, maybe. Oh, there you go. You're unmuted.
Thank you, Inspector or Chief Administrative Officer Sharuri. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining.
Sure.
I had a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
I think the first caller may have asked about this, but I will reiterate it because I think it may have been missed due to the poor audio quality.
Sure.
But it is that we are noticing that once permits have been fully approved by all plan check stations, it's taking up to 2 weeks plus to get them issued. and I was wondering if you were aware of that problem and then what is being addressed, what is being done to address that problem. Go ahead.
We are aware of it and we are working on it. We are realigning our workforce to do this. And as I mentioned, in terms of putting our resources together and just the cross-training staff so that they can address any of those delays. But I do appreciate you pointing this out, and we'll definitely look at it in more detail.
Thank you so much. And a quick follow-up question was around the OTC process. Just a couple of things that we have noticed. When the OTC initially launched in COVID, it was actually moving fairly smoothly and quickly, such that it did not present a problem to the applicant to get comments at the end of all plan check review stations. But as things currently stand, there's a queue for DBI that's, for architectural structural review that can be 2 to 3 weeks. SFFD review can be 2 to 3 weeks. Mechanical, electrical can be a week. PUC, the non-technical review stations such as PUC and BSM can also have long wait times. So it would be extremely advantageous to the applicant and to the design team if we could get comments from stations after review so that we could keep the project team moving and revisions in the works. That would be insanely helpful. And then just one other thing that I would just tack on and then allow you to respond, Mr. Sharouri, is I did see a technical implementation from DBI that looked very promising. It appeared to be sending email notifications when there were movement with an application. And I understand that that's new. That would be a remarkable achievement. But just from an applicant's point of view, if that could be triggered by any update in the official PTS system, that would just be a really wonderful value add.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Penn. And definitely that is one of the things that we are working on in terms of automatic notifications. When a status is updated, to automatically send you an email. We're a little bit of time. I mean, the automatic notification that you received is basically when we log in a request for an update for a permit issuance or a permit intake. And we have implemented that. We're making few corrective actions to this process, but we are looking at expanding it beyond that. PTS is a little difficult to work with, but we are getting a handle on it and adding additional components on top of it to enable exactly what you mentioned in terms of getting the notifications. As far as your other question, if you could clarify, what you're looking for is basically if you brought in a TI and the TI requires building plan check and requires mechanical plan check, what you're saying is that even though the mechanical plan check may not be done, you still want to get your building plan check corrections. Is that correct?
I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
Oh,
I can hear you.
fantastic. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yes. So yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when the architectural structural plan checker has reviewed and issued comments, they route the permit along to the next station, and it can be and the applicant doesn't receive the plan check comments until the permit has gone through all stations.
Okay, that's not an unreasonable request, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I will discuss it with staff and let you know.
Thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay, next caller is Sutro Power, and we ask that you try and make it as brief as possible. We've got a lot of folks to work through. We want to stay on schedule. You are unmuted, Sutro Power.
Hi, how's it going? This is JP from Sutro Power with Giuliano Lodi. We are a solar electrical installation firm based in the city. I, in the spirit of keeping it short, as you suggest, just want to touch upon 3 bits of advice we have for expediting plan set review for solar. I know that you guys raising the threshold to 4 kilowatts DC has been very helpful to us without plan check review. I suggest that you raise it to 6 kilowatts if possible. A lot of systems will be marginally over that if we're to cover someone's home consumption. So raising it to 6 kilowatts without necessitating plan check review is the first thing that we'd like to suggest. Secondly, I don't have an answer for this, but oftentimes we're held up when a re-roof is done in conjunction with the solar, or just getting a new roof of any kind. We have in particular one client that has been waiting for months for their roofing permit to be approved. If there's some way that we could have a re-roof or a roofing permit be done in conjunction with solar, if it is getting some system on the roof, I think that would be great for the city. It would be great for roofers. It would incentivize them to do solar when they do a re-roof rather than having us come in and install the solar after the roof is done years later. And it would make the process faster for us. Yes. So I guess that's the only bits of advice I have relevant to the current questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for those ideas. And I will again run them by staff. We're going to discuss them, and we'll give you an update.
Next caller is Daniel Robinson. Mr. Robinson, you are unmuted.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I very much appreciate all the changes that you're trying to implement, and I realize that many of these changes through the pandemic and also the fact that it's kind of a big shift to steer are difficult. But I had some suggestions for some easier ones, which I think would be very simple. And being an architect, we have we pull permits in multiple jurisdictions, so I'm in a unique position where I can kind of compare DBI to other jurisdictions. And one thing that I think would be very easy to do and really take very little time at all would be to have a system where you have a checklist of items that you need for a specific type of permit. And so to put that, to clarify that, in other jurisdictions, it will say, you're applying for a remodel that doesn't affect the exterior envelope of the house. Here's what you need: the site plan at this scale, interior elevations that are specific to X, Y, and Z. It just sets it up in a very easy way for us to know as architects exactly what we need to submit to you, so that not only does it make our job easier because we give you what you need, but I think it makes your review process easier, because if we followed your checklist, you have everything you need, and the review should be more streamlined.
Okay. That's a great idea, and I appreciate that. Thank you. We will definitely look at implementing something like this.
Next caller would be Alex Morin. You are unmuted.
Hi, this is Alex Morin holding this forum. These forums are very helpful, I think, for property owners as well as for businesses. My question is in regards to in-house permits. We were notified back in October that one of the projects that we submitted did not qualify for OTC review, and that it would need to go through the in-house process. And we've been trying to submit since then and keep sending emails requesting, submittal of the project, and are told that the projects are being reviewed or accepted in the order that they were, the emails were sent. But it's now been several months, and I'm just curious as to when we can expect to be able to submit the in-house permit, and then what the review times look like from there.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, the October applications and permits, just about except for 2 of them, have already been processed. So your permit should have been processed, or at least you should have received some communication from our staff as far as your permit, if it was received by DBI back in October. Definitely, if you want to send me an email, I would be happy to follow up and see why, if it is from October, that it's still stagnant like this.
Able to submit it yet?
You have not submitted it yet?
We've been trying to submit it. We've been told to send an email to a certain email address, and
yes.
And we can't even get it in the door at this point.
If you send us your information and your application, we'll definitely put it in our queue and get it processed for intake and issuance.
Thank you very much.
Sure, my pleasure.
The next caller is call-in user 20 with a phone number that I can't see.
Hi, this is Julie Jackson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I am an architect and a owner of a small architecture firm here in San Francisco. I'm very appreciative of the changes that have been made, and I love this kind of spirit of collaborativeness. So thank you for the opportunity to kind of let you know how it has been for me to work as an architect in the city right now. It's been a real struggle, and I think there's two kind of things that would be helpful to focus on. I'm hearing some things that I think are already in progress, and hopefully more can happen in terms of communication and keeping project sponsors up to date with where their projects are in the process. The previous caller mentioned the checklist. That would be extraordinarily helpful. Oftentimes a permit has been submitted and is in process, and then we find out that there's a form or there's something that wasn't clearly communicated that's maybe a new requirement. Having a checklist would be very helpful to be able to make sure that we're giving you everything that you need to review. Also, just in terms of communication, it's really difficult to keep track of where these projects are in the process. Other jurisdictions, I'm thinking of the Sonoma County PRMD, they have a kind of single point person project liaison that if I have a permit going through that system, I can call the one person and they'll track it down for me. I don't know if it's possible to do something like that because it's very difficult to track down all the different plan checkers. It's not a good use of their time, you know, to be kind of tracking things down on their end as well. So I think consolidating the communication and being more transparent and providing more ability for us as architects to be able to tell our clients how their projects are tracking would be really appreciated.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for the suggestion. I know it's not maybe one of the best portals out there, but we do have a process or a place on our website where someone can go and type in the permit number or type in the address and see basically the history of the project and where it stands in terms of the routing and the status.
Sorry, Corbin Jones, you are unmuted.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for giving me the time to speak today. I wanted to provide some feedback on the EPR process. We've been working with it since its rollout, and I really think it's a very promising tool that has the potential to create greater efficiencies and reduce administrative burden for DBI and all the other departments. I want to have some very specific feedback. It's about Section 9.0, subsequent submittals in the Bluebeam guidebook. Currently, the process is that for subsequent plan check submittals, entire sets of drawings need to be uploaded into the Bluebeam session. The problem with this is that it doesn't allow for the preservation of approval stamps on pre-proceeded drawings, which then requires reviewers to who have already stamped the drawings in Bluebeam to log in and restamp the new file. Understanding some revisions necessitate restamp. The problem really is, the set simply needs to be, if there's a one sheet or let's say a green building sheet or a special inspections form that needs to be inserted into the set, we have to replace the whole set in order to do that. So the feedback I have is Bluebeam is an excellent tool. If you can allow Bluebeam to access to the Bluebeam tools for inserting new sheets and slip sheeting revisions into drawings, that would sort of remove the need to have to go back and request all the other reviewers who've already stamped the drawings to go back and into the Bluebeam session. It would save time for everyone.
Okay, it's a good point. If I can maybe just ask for a clarification. In terms of when you say revisions, those are revisions do the plan check process for rechecks or field revisions after the permit is issued?
This is for the plan check process. So this is before the permit is issued in the Bluebeam session. Just allowing some slip sheeting would really take advantage of Bluebeam's power. It's a great tool.
Okay. Certainly. I mean, I will look into the capacities of Bluebeam to do that and discuss it with our EPR team and digital services and staff in here. And if there is a way, we certainly would be happy to do that. Any additional questions? John, any other questions? You are on mute, John, if you're trying to.
Oh, I am muted. I'm sorry. Mark Davis, you are unmuted.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity. And as everyone else has said, just having the access to you guys to hear all these updates is greatly appreciated. In addition to Julie's comment, or actually I'd like to just jump onto the comment from Julie about the checklist. That'd be so valuable. So I just wanted to be a +1 voice on that. But specifically today, I've got a small project that would easily qualify for an OTC routing, but the property is very unique, so it's requiring a variance. The addition is a total of 17 square feet, but it is requiring a variance. Our hearing is scheduled for the end of February. We were told that it's probably going to be on consent, but it's going to also be required to be submitted in-house, the in-house route, because it was requiring a variance. And right now it doesn't appear to be, there isn't an apparent avenue to submit for in-house review currently.
For OTC, you mean?
No, for in-house. I think this is going to have to be intake. So what are your suggestions?
For the in-house reviews, basically we take them in through email at this point. So if you email your application and your request, we will put it in the queue and process it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's simple enough.
Great.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Okay. My pleasure. Anytime.
The next caller is David Green, who has gone missing. Okay, next caller will be Henry Karnilowicz. Henry, you are unmuted.
Hello, Mr. Sharuri. Thank you
Hi.
for having us on this. I hope can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay, good. One thing, as everybody has said a number of times about the checklist, many years ago we used to do that at DBI, and it was great because you had the cover sheet would have a checklist right on there, and the people who did the drawings afterward would have it all checked off, and for the plan checks it was so easy. They look at the checks, oh, that one's done, they flip through it, they would only look at what they need to look at, and it was done and out the door. So that I would hope to see that. I do want to say that on the 5th floor at DBI, that was the best system that I've ever seen in any jurisdiction, how quickly plans were approved on the OTC. Now we're finding, somebody said 3 to 4 weeks. No. It's more like about 2 to 3 months with many plan checkers, structural plan checkers. But the other thing is really what I'd like to know is the OTC. Do you have a team that does just that? Because that's what I think we really need. A team that does just that and not anything else.
We have a small team dedicated to OTC, but our entire team is just shifts around according to the needs. We look at the OTC plans. If it is a small plan, takes a small amount of time, we allocate staff for it. So it keeps us basically with high degree of fluidity and be able to adapt very quickly according to the workload versus having just a set of dedicated staff for OTC. But OTC plan checks are done relatively faster than the in-house ones. And we'll continue to work on bringing this plan check timing down, especially that we are able to work overtime at this point for our plan check staff. And we'll definitely look at the checklists. We'll explore maybe some opportunities of even making those checklists electronic, where you can even view that checklist and its status online.
Okay, next caller is Mickey. Mickey?
Hi, I have some projects that are in like limbo between in-house paper site permit submittal and then the like plan check responses. So it's like paper and not quite digital. And it seems like a lot of the reviewers are not understanding the process, or what is the process for working through those.
You mean as far as electronic versus paper plan checks?
Yeah, like my projects are currently in paper, but they, like some of them aren't willing to check them. They want them submitted digitally, and I'm like, well, we're still in site permit paper.
Yeah, if it's in paper, we will accept it and we will plan check it. I know staff occasionally requests a PDF just because it makes it a little easier on the telecommuting and transfer of the plans. If that is provided, that's great. But if it's not, we will certainly accept your paper and review it.
Okay, yeah, I've been trying to send in PDF, but on that note, I've had multiple reviewers, you know, been absent for medical leave for months and extended. Like, how are the permit expiration timelines? Are they going to get extended for this time period?
It's a policy directive. I mean, if we'll have to look at that and examine it with basically
each one. Okay.
Yeah, and on a case-by-case basis, and even just through talking with the administration and just setting up a policy.
Okay, thank
We
you.
understand the difficulties and delays that you're facing, and it makes you approach the deadline in essentially a faster way. That we'll look at it. Thank you for your ideas.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to take 2 more for this section, and if we don't get to you, please, when we have a question and answer at the very end, you can sign back in. I've got you written down, so I'll try and get to you at the end. So Brian Fox, you are unmuted.
Great. Thanks very much for setting this up. It's a really great opportunity. So I'm an architect in San Francisco, owner of a small firm. Like many people, I have employees working from home and don't feel comfortable necessarily sending them out into the world the way we would have pre-COVID. And so subsequently, I'm administering a lot of the permit work myself. And so with multiple permits in the city, I'm down there, you know, many times a week, picking up communications that seems like it could be handled pretty easily, you know, online, Bluebeam notwithstanding. Are there any plans to try to get some of these comments into a format that can be transferred over email or some way that wouldn't necessarily require, you know, multiple trips down, potentially exposing you, exposing me, wasting time for things that could be handled pretty easily? I think, you know.
That's a really good point, Fox. And actually, the director and I were just discussing this point yesterday in terms of just instead of plan checkers writing out the comments by hand or keeping their corrections on their computers, that we need a central place for all those corrections where they basically entered into a system, a database, and where they are transferred and to you electronically as well. So that's definitely one of the points that we are discussing and will be working on.
That would be a huge help. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, and Rachel Wiesen name is cut off.
Wasn't it? Thank you. Could you, Sam, could you please go back and discuss when you believe your plan to clear the backlog would be? You mentioned end of February. And, you know, and are you saying that people who would have had plans submitted over the counter with plans submitted in October would have already or should have already been issued?
Should have been issued or processed. Some of the things that we receive, sometimes they might be incomplete, and we would communicate with the applicant. So it's either have been issued, have been cleared, or at least you have received some communication as far as your status.
And is there
what the additional requirements might be.
And when do you, you know, how long are typical, you know, pre-COVID, these would have been issued over the counter in one day for a, you know, remodel of a home. So now that they've been in for over 3 months, when can homeowners expect to sort of see this backlog cleared and how long, and so that they can sort of plan for, the future and these possible, delays and financial hardships that they're incurring.
As far as clearing the backlog and being able to do the intake and the processing, we are looking at the end of February in terms of basically going back on track in terms of doing them the very same day or maybe a day later at the most. But in terms of specifically on your project, you should have, did you submit it for, was it a plan check submittal in October or for, did it have a plan check that was attached to it?
It's in planning. It's sitting in the building queue. It's been there since, we submitted on October 20th, but whoever has been holding them has been holding them since December 17th. And every day we go on and check the tracking system and nothing moves. So, it would be nice if there was at least an estimate of like how much longer it was going to take, as opposed to, it's just like the spinning circle of death on your computer. There's, nothing changes.
Yeah, if it's a small remodel, it should have made it by now through the plan check. Is it actually in DBI for plan check or is it with planning for review?
It's already been through planning.
Through planning, and it's at DBI. If you can send me maybe the address. I don't want to take your address over the internet. If you can send me the address, I will definitely look at it and see where it stands.
Okay, we are going to go ahead, in the interest of time, we're going to move on to Elizabeth Waddy from Planning to discuss Proposition H implementation. And I am going to, Liz, I'm going to let you share your screen. So hopefully we can make this work.
Great, thanks. Just waiting for the share functionality to hit my screen.
There you go.
Okay. Great. John, can you see my slide?
Yes, Liz, before you start, Mr. Penn, we're having some sort of technical issue. If you wouldn't mind, could you hang up and try calling right back in?
Sure. You can hear me?
Yeah, that's part of the issue.
Got it. Understood.
Okay. Sorry about that, Liz. Go ahead.
No worries. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me join the forum today. So I'm just going to jump in and give a brief overview on the current status of our Proposition H implementation efforts, as well as a brief overview of what Proposition H is for those of you who weren't following it closely. But just to kick this off, the long and the short of it is there was a voter passed initiative in the November election that really focused on small businesses and improving the permitting process for small businesses. That is obviously a really loaded statement, saying improving the permitting process for small business. It can encompass so many different things. The idea was to really think outside the box, out of our typical permitting process for small businesses who often, even though they're often fairly small scopes of work, often have to touch a really large number of city agencies in order to open their business. And so the idea was, how can we rethink that experience for the customer and really give some certainty to our small businesses who are struggling, particularly more than ever during COVID. So as a result of the voter passed initiative in November, the election was certified a few weeks later in December. And the ordinance basically said that the city has 30 days after the effective date of the ordinance to figure out a way to be able to process this group of small business permits, and that's both operational permits as well as building permits, within 30 days. And there are repercussions for the city that are financial in nature if we don't hit those targets. So as a result of that, and I'll just jump in right here, I'm going to kind of walk first up. I'm going to walk through what Proposition H is, as I know a lot of the folks that are on the phone right now focus on residential architecture and permitting. This might be a little bit new to some of you, but certainly there's an abundance of architects out there working on TIs for small businesses. So I think this is a helpful presentation nonetheless. So basically, Proposition H requires that there is a 30-day streamlined review and inspection process for principally permitted uses in neighborhood commercial districts. For those of you who don't know, neighborhood commercial districts are the commercial corridors that are found throughout most of our sort of traditional commercial corridors that abut residential neighborhoods in the city. It requires that it has a whole bunch of hooks in there. So for example, if the city makes an error, there are benefits for the business owner, including prioritization and waived fees. It allows restaurants to have table service in parklets, which they didn't used to be able to do. And it basically gives some certainty in terms of how long these regulations are going to stay in place. There's a guarantee that these will stay as is for at least 3 years, at which time the Board of Supervisors could then choose to make changes to it. But there's a guarantee that for 3 years, these rules can't be adjusted by the board. Going into some of the other requirements, it eliminates neighborhood notification for principally permitted uses in these neighborhood commercial districts and limited commercial use districts. This is more so focused on the planning department. So really a lot of businesses would have to go through a 30-day neighborhood notification where one upset neighbor could request a discretionary review before the planning commission, functioning like an appeal. And because they needed to get that routed up to planning instead of being over the counter and our workloads, it would end up often taking many, many months to get through that process. So this proposition eliminates that and makes these in effect over the counter eligible projects. It also removes other restrictions in NC districts. So specifically for arts activities and social services and philanthropic uses, those now become principally permitted uses. Non-retail sales and service uses are principally permitted on the second floor. These are office type uses, not sort of the large sort of tech office types, but sort of the smaller commercial corridor type are now principally permitted on the second floor. It also allows entertainment, movie theaters, restaurants, limited restaurants, animal hospitals, and professional services in a more liberalized fashion, so more easily permissible in most of these districts as well. It allows, excuse me, it allows retail workspaces, so co-working type spaces to operate in conjunction with eating and drinking uses. So if you think about a restaurant that might only be open for dinner, typically it allows them to use their space during the day as a co-working space to augment their revenue source with some limitations. It allows sort of understanding the challenges that COVID have placed on our entertainment industry. It allows temporary uses in bars and entertainment venues for up to 4 years so that they can pivot their business model during those 4 years, and gives greater flexibility to pop up retail in vacant commercial storefronts. There's some other sort of getting more in the weeds, but for those of you who've worked in a lot of these commercial corridors, there used to be provisions where if you were in a neighborhood commercial district, you would still have to follow more stringent rules if there were more stringent rules within a quarter mile. Gets rid of that provision. And it also gets rid of the conditional use requirement that was typically required for what we call outdoor activity areas. That would be if a restaurant, for example, had access to a backyard space, they would typically need a conditional use to use that space for dining. That control was lifted with some hours of operation constraints placed around it. Again, some other sort of wonky details, but giving people a little more latitude to how they can operate their businesses. It expands the definition of what we call a social service or a philanthropic facility to allow the associated on-site office components of those businesses. And it expands the definition of what a bona fide eating place is to, again, liberalize it a bit. So that is, and I know I moved through that really quickly, but I want to kind of get to the meat of where we are now as it relates specifically to the permitting process. Monday was our go live. So 2 days ago on the 25th, we went live with this new permitting portal. So basically, as I said at the beginning, the ordinance required that we, quote unquote, sort of the city family, figure out a way to process these types of permits that were eligible for the presentation within 30 days. The mayor's office asked the planning department to take the lead in convening a working group among all of the city agencies who could be affected by this ordinance. So that includes DBI, Public Health, Public Works, the Entertainment Commission, Planning, Office of Economic and Workforce Development, as well as the Office of Small Business, to really come up with a new solution. What our new solution is we are taking some of the lessons learned from the ADU system. So as many of you know, in November, the planning department partnered with DBI to take over what are traditionally DBI's clerical functions for the intake and issuance process. We took over handling those as, let's see if this, sorry, I'm going to expand the presentation really quickly. Hopefully that still works, but we took over the intake and issuance process for the ADUs and have sort of made some adjustments along the way so that the ADU process could be fully digital through an online portal, leveraging Bluebeam, leveraging electronic plan reviews. And so we took some of those lessons learned into the Proposition H universe as well. So as of Monday, we have launched a system with the help of the Permit Center and with digital services to really be a one-stop shop for all things Proposition H permitting. So our goal, and you know, we launched a version 1 that we could get off the ground in 30 days. We do hope to continue iterating on this system and growing functionality. I see this forum as a great opportunity for us to get feedback as we progress through sort of permits as they come in, to see what expanded functionality would be really helpful for the small business community. But the idea is that, you know, if you're opening a new restaurant, for example, and you're doing a tenant improvement, that you can submit through the online portal, and I will go to the next slide here, through sf.gov. So there's a step-by-step instructions that really walks you through all of the different processes that are required. It will output to you here specific to the questions that you answered, and it's kind of a TurboTax style dynamic Q&A format on the sf.gov portal for small businesses. It'll tell you based on your answers what applications you need to fill out and submit. So once you do that, the city is basically turning around a completeness check within 3 days to make sure everything you have has been submitted. And then once we identify that you did indeed submit everything you needed within those 3 days, the city has a 30-day review period to issue all of those. So if you were doing a restaurant, that would be your traditional building permit plan. So again, the planning department will create a building permit application number for you. We'll establish the traditional routing like all of you are used to seeing and tracking in the permit tracking system. That building permit will physically be reviewed concurrently by planning, building, if there needs to be structural, mechanical, electrical, fire. It'll go through all that traditional review process, but also it will include any of the operational permits that you would need for a restaurant. So for example, you often have to subsequently go to the Department of Public Health to get your food and beverage operational permits. Well, this portal really consolidates all of that into a one-stop shop within that 30 days. So I'm going to leave it there. I know that's a lot of information. We did just go live, so I don't think we have a whole lot of work that we can look at to see how things are going quite yet. I think it's a little too early, but we're really excited about this. We do have a website up dedicated to Proposition H and permitting questions. So if there are any questions after this presentation that we're not able to answer right now that are really site specific, feel free and email them. The website, and I'm sorry it's not up on this slide, but it's CPC for City Planning Commission .smallbiz, that's SMALLBIZ @sfgov.org. And with that, I'm going to unshare my screen, but John, if you want to open it up if there are any questions.
Please feel free to dial *3 or click a little hand raise emblem. I am not seeing any questions right now. So going once, going twice. Oh, one. Here we go. Pamela Harris.
Hi, this is Pam Harris. And my question is, this is kind of important for a lot of people, this Proposition H. And I'm wondering, this presentation is, although it's fast, but it's it could be very useful for those that are actually going through this. So is there any way, are we able to see this presentation again?
Yes, absolutely. So a couple. Oh, sure. Go ahead. So I also failed to mention I've got Bridget Hicks on the line here with me from the planning department, who's been the project manager getting this effort off the ground. So she certainly has all the answers in the weeds more than I do. So go ahead, Bridget, if you can share where this presentation can be found.
Yeah, just right on sfplanning.org. It's Prop H is the main header on our page. If you click there, it'll bring you to a Prop H page. The links to the presentations are there. This presentation, you can find the link to SF.gov, where we presented to the Planning Commission and the Small Business Commission, but also the slides are there and much more information.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions? Any other hands raised, John?
I raised my hand and it looks like I'm off mute. So can you hear me? Great, thanks. Hi, Liz. This is a great program, and I'm very excited about it. I'm doing a lot of restaurant design in San Francisco over the years. This will certainly be helpful. And I can see that when we finally come out of the sort of shelter-in-place shutdown and retail is much more open, there are so many businesses that have gone out of business, and so many people that are going to need help to get back on their feet, that you're probably going to have a stampede of people at some point in the near future. So hopefully you're sort of set up to be able to handle that. I think your idea of this sort of input of questions to establish the process of what needs to be done is a great opportunity to translate that over to our friends at DBI as well. I think that would be a great opportunity. Some of my colleagues have talked about process improvement, and that's one of the things that we've talked about internally with our architectural groups. The other thing is I wonder how we can get this out to the community. What is there any sort of offensive work to let the trade organizations in San Francisco know about this and how to use it and start introducing them to it so that it's smoother to get adopted?
Yeah, and honestly, we would love to hear your feedback on solutions. I mean, I'll be candid. We as a city are not often great with marketing.
Right.
Tends not to be our strong suit. I do know there is, if there hasn't already, there is going to be an article, I believe, in the Cron about Prop H and the implementation effort. So hopefully that will sort of spread the news a little bit wider. Also, a lot of times when small businesses do open, they will often reach out to the Office of Small Business through the SF Business Portal. I think that's fairly well known in the business industry. So we're leveraging, they are a huge partner in this, as well as the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development, where they've got relationships with a lot of the CBDs and a lot of the business corridors. And so we're trying to tackle this through sort of a multi-pronged outreach approach. But we can certainly always do a better job. So if you've got suggestions of where we can target outreach, we'd be more than happy to present at various, trades groups as well. So feel free and shoot to that email that I mentioned earlier, the cpc.smallbiz at sfgov.org, if you have any suggestions of who we can contact. And then to your first comment, just to chime in on that, a big part of the ADU launch as well as the Prop H launch is to take some bite-size sort of project typologies and try them out in a digital space and the ADU process is a little bit different than the Prop H process, and to continue to start iterating to see if we can really pull together a strong system for a long-term, more broad application of a digital plan review online portal. So, during the summer, we kind of went whole hog and that didn't work so well and we had to really scale it back. And so this approach is sort of bit at a time, taking some pilot projects through an online permitting system so that we can move the city in the future in that direction for additional typologies of projects.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So we will move on to COVID safety at construction sites, and I will share my screen one more time. Why are you letting me share my screen? Joe, are you seeing the COVID
Yes.
safety construction sites? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, John. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Joe Duffy, Acting Deputy Director of Inspection Services. Thanks for everyone coming on the call here today. And I just want to talk a little bit today about as John mentioned, about the COVID safety at the construction sites. In the last probably couple of months now, we have partnered with the City Administrator's Office, the Health Department, and the City Attorney's Office, and really we started off we really just trying to get some educational information out there to contractors and people working in construction sites to remind them about obviously the dangers of COVID in the sites, and to make sure that they're in compliance with the health order. Our goal is to ensure the safety of contractors, workers, the public, and our DBI employees. So with that, we just want to ensure that the contractors continue to comply with the health order. So we are basically, when our inspectors show up at the site, we do have some information with us about the requirements. It's in the health order. Most of the contractors that we deal with all kind of know about it, and there is some simple enough requirements for the smaller sites. It gets more expanded when you go into 10 or more, and that's continuously evolving. But we're basically we will ask the inspectors to have a checklist with them, and if there's some things that they notice that there's non-compliance, for example, if there's no log, if there's no sanitizer on the site, if someone's not wearing a mask, they're supposed to document that. They obviously are concerned about their safety, and they will leave the checklist with the contractor to remind them about it. In addition to that, we will bring the checklist back, and we will keep it in our files, and if the city attorney or the health department people want it, it is sent to them for review. We do have weekly meetings with the other city family as well, and you know, there has been some of the sites have had pretty high outbreaks. So again, it just checking for the mask wearing, the protocols, the social distancing, all the normal stuff. The next slide, John. Again, we just one other thing there, just if there's people on here that just know that the inspectors, if they do feel that the site is not safe for them to even enter, they will cancel the inspection, which will have obviously an impact on the on the project. We haven't really had too many of them, but most of the sites that have the big outbreaks, just like other workplaces, they usually close them down for a couple of days, do a real deep clean, and they'll be allowed to operate again. Our inspectors have gone to a couple of sites recently with the health department where we had maybe a couple of outbreaks, and we do work closely with them on a sort of a mini task force, just again, purely educational at this point, just trying to get the word out. So not sure, John, I think that's all the slides on that. I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
We have one caller with a question who I cannot unmute for some reason. Apologies, everyone. Carrie Thompson, you have your hand raised, but I'm unable to unmute you for some reason. Can you try maybe dialing back in?
Just John, if you're just getting Carrie back on there, I want to thank everyone that out there. in the industry for their compliance with the health order. We found that most of the time everyone's doing the right thing. And thanks for your patience in dealing with us on this as well. And it's deeply appreciated by our inspectors who are part of your team on these projects. So we definitely some feedback from that. And again, just thank you.
Okay, well, we'll let, if I see Carrie's name pop up again in the questions at the end, I will make sure to get to
Kerry can reach out to me directly, John, as well. And I know he's with Clark Construction, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Oh, let's try it again. Here's Carrie now.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you now.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's really great information. This is great. This is the first time I've attended these meetings. I'll be attending the future ones. But so my name's Kerry, and I'm with a general contractor, Clark Construction, do a lot of large new construction projects in the city. So one thing I heard Liz talking about was there's a one-stop shop permit portal, and including the health department. Of some of the challenges we've came across is also with the fire department. Not sure if she's including the fire department as well as assembly permits. That's something I'd like to see us. We've gotten snagged on an Achilles heel kind of on that at the end of projects. So I hope that's included as well. But a few things I've seen that have held us up is Title 24. So our Title 24 documents are included on the drawings. We've submitted them to the DBI email, and then we sometimes get a response back. Recently, I got a response back that I'm missing 11 documents. So I'm looking to get out in front of this and learn, does DBI have a Title 24 point of contact? I know we had great success at Chase Center with that, with motion, but some of the smaller projects recently, I'm finding out I'm struggling at the end, and we get to TCO, and then our goal is to get to CFCO pretty quick after. So these type of things are holding it up.
John, I can speak to that a little bit if you want.
Sure.
Hi, Carrie, how you doing? Yeah, Kerry, I just think that the special inspections at the end of the projects are always an issue. And I understand that they do hold up the CFC. As you did mention that it doesn't prohibit the TCO, which is a big threshold for everyone.
Right.
But what I would say is that the email that's out there for the DBI special inspections is the email to contact on any special inspection items. And if you're not getting feedback back what the items are specifically that are outstanding, then I need to know about that, because we should be letting you know not just 11 items are missing, what are the items, and we should be giving you that in an email electronic format, so that you simply can pass that along to your energy consultant or your architect and get those back into us promptly so that we can clear them. It's no problem clearing them. Another bit of advice to anybody there that's dealing with these, I don't know why it is, but it always seems to be the week you want the TCO or the CFC that we're dealing with this. Title 24 can be turned in month probably before that stage, and the earlier you get the special inspections into us, the easier we can clear them in our system. But happy to take any suggestions to make that more streamlined for everyone.
Right. So
and then just to follow up on Carrie, on your question about the fire for Prop H, fire permits are included into that 30-day one-stop shop. So if it's associated with a business permit that's Prop H eligible, it's inclusive of fire.
That is good news. Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate it. Construction, once we break ground on these new projects, they don't slow down. So the project I'm on now, this new San Francisco Crime Lab, has got all our permits are issued. We're a month away from power. So DBI did a great job. I've been on some projects where the fire alarm, life safety is lagging a little bit. And I think we've got all our point of contacts. Rich Brown's been a great help. But I know recently a lot of inspectors have retired and we got new faces. I'm just wondering, between DBI, electrical, plumbing, fire department, is everybody on the same page between the plan checkers, the inspectors? Because that's where I jump in a lot, and when we have a roadblock, to try and get on the same page with everybody. So my recommendation would be something like a town hall or lunch and learn every so often. I just wanted to put that out there.
Kerry, Joe again here. That's a really good idea. And you are right about the retirements and a lot of changing faces. I think the COVID pandemic has had something to do with that, and it's changed our world a little bit, obviously, with regards to having our TCO meetings in person with 30 or 40 people in the room. We're doing a lot of them virtually now. But certainly from any time on a project like that, the earlier you have that meeting, the better, so that we know what way that's going to go. It's usually from around the middle to the end once you start knowing your timelines on testing and stuff like that. But again, we can do more of these public outreach, just like Liz said there as well with planning. DBI with our inspection staff, and I know electrical, plumbing and fire would have no problem doing a town hall for contractors just to help them through the process as well. And one of the things we are working on, I think, as we've talked about, is just getting around to doing it. It's again a checklist. These checklists are very good, where that assembly permit that no one thinks about, that at the end it's holding you up, and maybe some state licensing requirements or something like that. If we can let you guys know ahead of time, months ahead of time, you can start working on it. And I think we can do better in that regard. And I do think you'll find as this year goes on, that's one of our goals is to make it a more user friendly for the projects at the end, so you're not getting the surprise that's going to hold you up. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We are going to move on to follow-up from October, general questions and comments. And so the questions that were outstanding from October were actually all covered by earlier questions, but just for the record, they were: can plan checkers email comments before routing to other departments? Can DBI outsource plan review to third-party vendors? And actually, we don't think we covered this one. Does DBI accept e-signatures? So Sam, if you wouldn't mind addressing e-signatures.
Yes, certainly. Sorry, I had my mask back on. Yes, electronic signatures, and I'm assuming the question pertains to electronic signatures on the plans and the calculations that are being submitted, and we will accept the those electronic signatures on the plans.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a general question about accepting signatures electronically.
Yes, we will accept signatures electronically, correct.
Okay, that was easy. We can now go on to finish up some of the questions from before. So if you want to press *3 or raise your hands, I will start with the folks that did not get an opportunity to ask their question, even though they had their hand raised earlier. So let's start with August Goer on? I'm not seeing you anymore. So let's go ahead with Wendy Aragon.
Hi, so just a quick question. Is there any way that DBI can maybe via the Twitter account or something, let the public know about delays? We have permits that we submitted for 2 small bathroom renovations on the 29th of December, and they sat at CPB for 3 weeks. I know that with over the counter, it's been much quicker, but I'm sure at the end of the year, there's been a lot of delays. That'd be really helpful to know, because it's hard for us to explain to our clients why something's sitting and processing for so long. And if that's like a staffing delay, that's totally fine.
Sorry about that. I actually muted you. Go ahead.
Okay. If there's an issue with like staffing or backlog, that's fine. But it'd be nice to have like some kind of like real-time tracker that if the department is delayed for anything like over the counter, that we know that when we've submitted plans, because for the most part, we've been getting over the counter plans back within a week or 2. So 3 weeks sitting at CPB is kind of, it's hard to explain that to a homeowner.
Sam, I'll defer to you on that.
Yes, thank you for bringing up this point. That is a good and valid point as well. We are working through our process, and we have made great strides so far in reducing our wait times and in terms of the processing. And just moving forward, it will be a lot faster than it was in the past. Your question, I believe that it was once it was approved, that it basically you did not get a notification until much later in terms of it being ready for issuance or the next step. Is that correct?
No, it was that we filed it, we dropped it off, and then it sat at CPB for 3 weeks before it went to a building plan checker. So it was sitting, just waiting to be routed.
Okay, I understand. When did that take place?
We submitted it on the 29th of December, and it finally was routed to a building plan checker on the 20th of January.
Okay. I do apologize about that and about the delays. We are working faster through our list in terms of processing them at a greater rate.
Yeah. I mean, ways like that we're understanding, but we just want, I think having some kind of update for the public to know that like there's delays that we can anticipate that and we can build that into our schedules.
I totally understand.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If Alida Zavala is on, I'm going to unmute you. You had a question earlier.
Yes, hello. Hi. My question is in regards to the EPR system and the PTS system. I was notified a week ago that some of the in-house permits I submitted electronically back in June of last year were internally processed as site permits. The only way I found out that these permits were being processed as site permits were by the comments left on the PTS by the plan checkers. Since there's no way to identify through the PTS system right now if a permit is a site permit or not. I wanted to know if you're aware of this problem, if this is an issue that is probably happening at a larger scale, and what can DBI do to correct this for future submittals?
We are working through our process and improving it. And PTS, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. You're asking if PTS can track site permits?
No,
was that part of your question?
It's more about how can I identify through the PTS system if any the permits are either a site permit or a building permit.
I would have to check. I mean, we do track it within PTS. I would have to double check to see if that information is transferred online through our portal.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Because I mean, some of these permits that I have are way under, the permit review currently right now, and it's, they're being reviewed as site permits when when I submitted them electronically, they were building permits.
I see. Okay. Definitely we'll look into that.
Okay, thank you. Next caller is Jake Muldoon. I'm going to unmute you. You had a question earlier.
I did. Hi. Thanks everyone for all your hard work over the last few months. I have a couple of questions. The first is that I submitted a permit back in December, and I was told by a building reviewer what number it was in line in the queue. So I'm just wondering, is each permit assigned a number in the queue, and can those numbers be posted on the PTS once it reaches each station, just so we know where we are in line? And my second question is, I asked if there was an OTC review schedule for each plan reviewer for the day, and I was told that that's no longer public information. And I'm wondering why that is, since it was posted on the 5th floor at the old DBI before.
Okay. In terms of the public information and why it's not posted, I will look into that. I wasn't even aware of the fact that it was posted in the first place, but I will discuss it with staff and find out. I'm sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Oh, the first part was if the number of our permit in the queue could be posted on.
Okay.
Just the building.
Yeah, it's done actually outside of our permitting tracking system. It's done in a spreadsheet, and each plan checker is assigned a number of plan checks depending on their workload. And they would have basically a series of plan checks basically waiting for them to be plan checked. That is not in the PTS, and that's not something that is, since it's not in the database, it's not really on the portal. Overall, we are approaching a more comprehensive approach to this in terms of letting you know basically maybe some estimate of where the plan check is and the ability to get more information out of the system. It does take additional tools that we are looking at in terms of being able to provide this information, and it's something that we'll probably have a better update and better clarity for you on by the next meeting.
Okay, we have Kevin O'Connor. You are unmuted.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this, and thank you for your extra time and hard work. I really do appreciate it. I know it has been hard over the last few months, and I know I've made my own trouble, so I really am appreciative of all your efforts. I had one question related to what someone spoke earlier about expired permits I wanted to ask about. Is there a way to correct expired permits online to get current? And if not, how can I do it? Do I have to come in and do that? And the second prong to that question is, right now I'm waiting on a SAC review, third-party review, or some sort of heightened review due to the SLOPE Act. And it's hard to determine exactly when my review will come up. I know we're in the process of interviewing now, but it kind of also relates back to another question where it would sometimes be nice just to know where you are in the queue. Basically, the only thing I have been told is we're very busy, be patient, you're in line. And sometimes if you could measure the process and the progress, it would just make it more understandable and would definitely get more patience out of me. So thank you very much. That's the questions. I really appreciate this. And you guys.
Okay, sure. I think I could defer the question of permit renewal to my colleague, Joe Duffy. He touched on it briefly earlier, but he could maybe elaborate some more in terms of the permit expiration and its renewal.
Unfortunately, Joe had to.
Oh, he did. Okay.
We'll have to get back to you on
So
that one.
I can speak to that a little bit. Maybe, Kevin, if you just send an email to Joe and he can provide you with the information in regards to you being able to review whatever it is that's expired.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Ridden. That's exactly what I'll do. I appreciate it. That's what
Okay, Sam, and the second part of the question?
I'm sorry, what was the second part?
The SAC review.
The SAC review?
Yes.
In terms of the review for the slope requirements and additional, I'm sorry, if you could repeat that second part of the question.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now again?
Yes.
Yeah, it was more just kind of the ambiguity involved in SAC and peer review. The time frames have been hard to pin down, I think, because the availability of inspectors or other committee members to be hired. So sometimes it's not clear to me how soon the progress is or where you are.
Okay.
So if we could speed it up and then maybe find out some sort of better process so we understand better exactly what the process is. Thanks.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks.
Okay, we will have we have time for one last caller. It's gonna be Nick. Nick is, I cannot unmute. Nope, there we go. Nick, you are unmuted.
Oh, hey, Sam. I'm the suggestion. We submit a lot of permits through DBI, and we notice there's a big inconsistency in the routing process. So I think it would be good. I know you guys have a list there with intake staff. To create a list so we get consistency there. For example, we'll submit a like an over-the-counter TI no exterior work, and go over the routing with the building plan checker on the first floor. He'll mark a bunch of routing stations, but then all of a sudden, once it gets intake, you see, 3 or 4 extra stations put in there. I think it would help the city a lot as well to eliminate stations that aren't required.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for the suggestion. Sometimes what happens is that when it goes to additional, more thorough review, they realize maybe additional things that might be needed. Were those actual errors that it should not have gone to those additional reviews or those additional stations, or just that you were not were not aware of it early on?
Okay. That is about all we have time for. So the next meeting of the Public Advisory Forum will be April 28th, 2021. You can sign up for our customer updates at sfdbi.org/signup, and you can always email us at dbicustomerservice@sfgov.org. We will be posting a recording of this event to our website, so you can always watch it again if you would like to. With that, thank you very much, and have a great day.